Hello, hello, hello. We are live here, and we are about to get started with our live broadcast with the national brand representative for the Clonakilty Distillery, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Irish whiskey history, past, present, future. We're going to get started in just a few moments. This is just to usher people in, and please hang out with us for a little bit. And I'm going to start sharing the stream with folks. So sit tight, relax, and enjoy the music. We're listening to this YouTube channel here. So enjoy the music. We'll get started in just a few moments. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for joining. We're going to get started in just a little bit. Irish whiskey, past, present, future with Clonakilty. Oh, here we go. I think we have Patrick on. Do we? Newark, Delaware. Nice. Laird. That's a strong. It's not like Laird is like a Celtic. Oh, here we go.
Alex.
Patrick's here with us today.
How are you?
Good, good. We're just. Can you hear the music, by the way?
No, I can't hear anything.
I can hear the music.
Like,
Let me try to. Oh, here we go. I have to share the audio. That's why.
Okay.
All right. So this is just kind of some elevator music for folks right now.
Okay.
Can you hear it now? No, you can't hear the music?
I can barely hear something. I'm getting this message, having trouble connecting. This is often caused by an unstable internet connection.
Okay.
I can hear something now, yeah. It's not coming through very clearly.
No?
No, but I suspect the problem could be on my end.
That's all right. I'm just going to start a few events here. So I'm going to set up here with some watch parties here.
Okay. You know what you're doing. I don't, so I'll just stay quiet.
I labeled this the Irish whiskey past, present, and future.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good.
with the Clonakilty Distillery. Can you hear the music now, though?
Very, very low. So
Very low.
You're coming through perfectly. It's just I can hear there's something in the background, but I wouldn't be able to identify it if I had to.
Okay. All right, we're going to get started in just a little bit, folks. Got 5 more minutes. We got 15 people with us so far. So I'm going to also read off some of these comments so people can ask questions. A Laird Cummings from New York, Delaware says he's present. And I was like, Laird, I was like, that sounds very Celtic. And he's like, Celtic indeed. And then he says, could you comment on Red Breast Irish Whiskey? Just discovered this and I like it a lot. Normally a Scotch whiskey drinker. Yes, we will talk about all those Irish whiskeys later. Laird says, I'm getting the music pretty solid. Earl says, hello. Okay, hello. Great. Maybe I'll turn it down just a little bit. So feel free to ask questions, guys. Post questions. We will do our best. We'll do our best to answer all questions.
We're actually going to launch a new whiskey in Connecticut in like 2 weeks' time. So the guy that's going to do it with me is going to watch this to see if this StreamYard is the way to go on it.
Oh, okay.
It's an exclusive for Connecticut, so it's only it's a small.
Oh, nice.
We do these collaborations with local breweries, and it's going to be one of those. So you can see the comments, but obviously I can't.
Well, you can't off just from our stream, but if you actually go to like a live stream on Facebook, like on my Whiskey Steward page, if you have another screen open like that, then you could see people talking.
I won't risk the internet going down, so I won't.
yeah, that's right. I can read the question for you. Don't worry.
That's okay. That's fine.
All right, posting this on my page here. All right. Good evening, Pittsburgh Cigar Club. Okay. Earl. Okay. Hi, Earl. Hi, Belinda. Laird asks more on the Connecticut release.
It's Imperial Stout casks were sent from New England Brewing Company to Ireland to Clonakilty about 4 months ago. It's the second collaboration we've done. What we're trying to do is do collaborations in every state that we're in. And generally what we try and do is we find private breweries. So, we stick with the small independent guys. And we work with them. We work with whatever beer they want to do. So they fill some casks with the beer, they empty the casks, we send them as fast as we can to Ireland, fill them with whiskey, and then send them right back out to the local market. So what's interesting is, obviously, you know, people will recognize. I have the first one. If I can, this was one that this is the first. Oh, hang on, I need to get used to this now. Can you see that? That was what we did for New England with the fuzzy duck finish.
Oh, interesting.
So they have what's called, they have an IPA called a fuzzy duck IPA, and that was the first one we tried, and it was really successful. Now we've done a second one, and our distiller, our blender and distiller Paul has said that he thinks it's one of the nicest whiskeys we've ever done. And it's come out, we've put it out at 50.1% ABV or 50.2, and it's just going into the Connecticut market.
Oh, wow.
So we're just launching it. It just got cleared out of customs in New Jersey like 2-3 days ago, so it's been in there. But it's because obviously it's New England Brewing Company, it'll be recognized in Connecticut. I mean, I don't know if it would make any sense to do something like that in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we're going to do it with Roy Pitts. Have you ever heard of Roy Pitts?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was there. I sent you a picture today, Alex. I think I sent you by email. There was one picture that I took from Roy Pitts. I put it on your email. Okay. And it's.
Let me pull that up later.
Yeah, pull it up later. We can talk about it later on. But you know, it's an interesting thing we're trying to do. It kind of gets us closer to the markets, gets us closer to each of the states as well, and sort of makes a statement as well. We're independent. These are small independent craft breweries as well. You know, so like the little guys are trying to stick together. Basically, there's a little bit of that in it as well.
All right. So, my Matthew McConaughey impression.
Matthew McConaughey, yes. You know Matt, the famous actor Matt Damon.
Yeah.
He's stuck in Dublin at the moment.
Oh, really?
So there's all these pictures of people spotting Matt Damon going swimming, or Matt Damon doing this, or Matt Damon doing
really?
that. So, yeah. Not sure how happy he is to be there, but you know, there you go.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Let me just share a couple more things. Do a couple more things here, and then we'll get going. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up. Let me get the. So Patrick is a true professional, because we even have a PowerPoint slide for you folks today, and
is PowerPoint laziness, though, Alex? That's the question. There we go.
Here we are. Hold on one second here. Let me just. Okay, so we also have the PA rep, Belinda, our friend, a dear friend of mine. She says she works with leadership brands in PA, so she reps this slide. So we got one of your PA reps here.
Excellent. Hello there.
So she can you can drop some knowledge on her, and okay. So grab a seat, grab a glass of whiskey or whatever, or tea or coffee or whatever you're drinking, and we are going to be on our way in just a little bit. I'm also sharing this with some of my groups abroad. Are you guys planning on going to like Asia or any of that expansion in Asia and whatnot? Obviously, big whiskey.
Yeah, we are. We were on a trip. My colleague Dennis was on a trip to Asia last year, and yeah, got a very good response. Again, I suppose it's an education thing, right? That a lot of people aren't knowledgeable at all about Irish whiskey in Asia. It's all about
No, they are
stouts,
not.
and it's going to be a slower burner, I think. I mean, the reason we can become successful in the US is basically down to the amount of money that Pernod and Tullamore Dew and these guys have spent in the US promoting Irish
Yeah,
whiskey. So we can't go into a country that these guys haven't been in before, so they have to sort of
right.
do the hard yards and then, let the
The
rest of
hard
us
work.
come in,
Yeah,
because, we wouldn't be able to survive doing it. But no, it's interesting. I mean, if you look at it just from a purely economic point of view, the price points are fine. People are well able to pay big bucks for whiskey in Asia. So this
yeah,
isn't a problem. Whereas if you look at Ontario, Canada, which is the biggest purchaser of spirits in the world, I think that's right. The prices they require for people so low to sell in Ontario is like a nightmare. So if you
really.
want to be in Toronto, you have to really, really have low prices. So they're the kings of maximizing profits. To the detriment, really, I think of Ontario, the system, because it's a controlled state or a controlled province, and they do tenders and stuff, and it's a lot of it is dependent on price. So people are just cutting. So a lot of the decent whiskeys that you can see in other places, won't be there just because just the price point isn't correct. But in
Yeah,
terms of Asia, definitely. But I mean, it's a long-term thing. I think people in
yeah. It's
Asia as
all
well. It's all about building relationships and everything, and it's not a one-year thing. So
no,
I think
no, no.
we were there, we presented our stuff, and we'll keep coming back there, and hopefully in a couple of years we'll be able to establish some positions there.
All right. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. One last thing here, and we will kick it off. Hope everybody's sitting down and comfortable and with a glass of whiskey or tea or whatever it is you fancy. And we're going to get started just as soon as I do a little something here. All right. Oh. We have somebody asking here, do you guys do any duty-free releases?
Yes, we have a duty-free release in Dublin Airport and in Cork Airport. I think it's a 15-year-old malt. I think it is. I have a little sample of it here. It's just an exclusive.
Oh, nice.
15-year-old malt, yeah. We've got like 10 casks of that 15-year-old malt allocated for the US. So there's whiskey clubs and different sort of chains of liquor stores going to go over to Ireland. Well, they were supposed to start coming over in July of this year, but we'll see what happens. And to pick basically a barrel, through a barrel pick.
Okay.
So as we sourced some malts at the start when we set up the company, and they've been sitting down very close to this Gallyhead Lighthouse that you see here. If this picture had been taken a different way, on the right hand side, you would have seen where our warehouse is. So we put our
Okay.
warehouse right on the Atlantic coast. The actual distillery is about 6 miles from here, so it's on the coast, but it's sort of in the town, so you wouldn't really realize that you're on the coast. But down here is, it's basically the next stop is the US, so it's really windswept. It's clean air, and the great debate about how much influence the sea air has on whiskey.
Yeah.
We'll answer that probably not in the next couple of years, but 10 years down the line will be interesting.
Yeah. Hello, Oscar from Texas joins us. He's driving around. All right. Well, so we're going to get started here. Thanks everybody for joining us. This is going to be great. So Patrick and I had a little test run, a sound check. We talked about a couple of things. I posed a couple of questions. That Patrick also was really excited to share And I think you also, even went back after our little sesh to do some more research to add more to this, right?
Yeah, did a little bit
Yep.
of finding out stuff. Yeah.
All right, great. And then so please introduce yourself. If you guys don't know me, well, let me introduce myself first. If you guys don't know me, I run a few whiskey clubs, the Philadelphia Whiskey Society and the Tides Whiskey Society. I also teach whiskey ambassador and certification classes, but this is just a thing that I'm doing now that we're all social distancing, and I started doing live broadcasts with experts in the field. And today we have Patrick. So Patrick, please tell us your journey here. How did you get to where you are today?
Hi, folks. My name is Patrick Coll. I'm responsible for the US and Canada for the distribution and sales for Clonakilty Distillery.
Oh, Canada too.
I'm sorry, Canada as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been involved since the start, since basically the company was set up, and even before the company was set up in 2016. I know Michael Scully. Well, the Scully family are the founders of the distillery, and I know Michael well, so he asked me to get involved in it. And to be honest, I was more of a beer drinker because my experiences with whiskey, were when I was in my early 20s, and so I wasn't buying the most expensive whiskeys, and I was a little bit put off, at whiskey, and I didn't realize until later on in life, when you pay a little bit more for whiskey, you can actually get some really, really good whiskeys.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And before we started the journey, or before we set up and made the final decision to set up the company, we went on a tour around Scotland. We visited distilleries. We spent some time on Islay. Michael went further. He went up to Speyside and other places, but I spent the time with him in Islay. And we went to Kilchoman. We thought it was a great idea. We thought that Anthony Wills had done a great job on how he built the brand. We love the idea of the family farm. We loved, that whole idea. So that was sort of one of the starting points for how we thought we would like Clonakilty Distillery to be.
Okay.
And if you look at this, the picture that's in front of us, you see Galahad Lighthouse right at the let's say the bottom right, but this fields behind this that we grow our barley on.
Okay.
So what we try and do is we don't have enough capacity to grow all our barley for the whiskey, but we do as much as we can.
Right.
And because we're doing single pot still, as most of the unmalted barleys we grow ourselves.
Okay.
And then we mature it in the warehouse. As I said, it's just to the right again on the edge of the ocean. And we have the distillery, which, even though the company was set up in 2016, with financing and raising money and putting together the whole building the thing, our first spirit started flowing in March of 2019. So we have basically 1 year down of single pot still. And we made the decision that we were going to just do single pot still. So we don't do any grain whiskey, we don't do any malt, pure single pot still whiskey.
Which is actually very rare, right? So you guys do, which is actually very rare. You guys really just, you're vested in the single pot still whiskey, so
yeah,
it's almost like all or nothing. You guys do make a little gin, which we'll talk a little bit more about that, but not having a calm still and not doing blended whiskey for the most part, right? And then but you guys are vested in that single pot still idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the quintessential Irish whiskey, right? So if we were to go into a time machine and go back to the 1870s, the 1880s, it would all have been single pot still.
Yeah.
And, again, like 2/3 of the whiskey that was sold in London in the late 19th century was single or pure pot still, it was called at the time, from Ireland. Yeah. So that was so a lot of people knew what single pot still was. And when we thought about it, we made the decision that this was the way we wanted to go. And I mean, it is a complex spirit, and it's unique. And I think there's always, if it's done right, like everything, if it's done right, and we take care of every single stage of the process, then we're going to produce something that's going to be really, really special.
All right, and then so we also have Bob. I'm just going to chime in every now and then when people make comments. Bob, we have actually somebody that visited the distillery. Bob Hurley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Says the most beautiful distillery I've ever visited.
Bob, I met Bob. Hi, Bob. I met Bob. It was a month ago in Westboro, just out of Boston.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay, nice.
He was buying a bottle of 27-year-old Redbreast.
Oh, nice. That's a nice one.
Yeah,
and we also have Robin Robinson, our friend. He just came out with a book. I'll plug him for a little bit. He came out with a book. He's working with no, I'm getting egg on my face. It's the complete whiskey course. That's right. There was another author that came out with another book, but Robin says, is it single pot still or whiskey only in pot stills?
No, it's single pot still. So basically, it's the mash bill is at the moment is 60% unmalted barley and 40% malted barley. So when we started off for the first 5 months, we were making 60% malted, 40% unmalted, because it's actually harder to do. As Paul, our distiller, got used to the equipment, then we switched over. So now it's 60% unmalted, 40% malted. Okay. It's not just in the pot stills. It actually is a single pot still, the malted and unmalted barley.
All right. Well, let's get started with our talk on the history here. So your first slide here, the Renaissance of Irish whiskey, or the Renaissance of Irish whiskey. Tell us more about that title. Why is it the Renaissance or Renaissance?
Well, I suppose the thing is that we've gone a full circle from, let's say, around 1880, where we had 12 million 9-liter cases, which was the volume of Irish whiskey produced in that time, and that went down to like 400,000 9-liter cases.
Wow.
Which was like the 60s and 70s. So basically, Irish whiskey was nearly wiped out. And now, due to some of the big guys coming in, buying up Irish distillers, for example, which were bought out by Pernod, William Grant bought into Tullamore Dew, John Teeling set up Cooley. They really invested in it. And basically got Irish whiskey back out into the markets. It had disappeared from a lot of the markets that it was in, and people Scotch had just completely taken over from Irish, and people had no idea what it was. They didn't know it was Irish whiskey. It was distilled in Scotland. Just people had no idea, and why would they? Because it basically disappeared. So only real connoisseurs would know what it was, and even then, people were sort of looking down their noses at it a little bit. And I think a lot of the art and the finesse and the quality, had disappeared, over the years. And it's only, since really the 80s, that really this has come back again, and people are actually putting a premium on Irish whiskey. Yeah.
So people, may not know this, but Irish whiskey, like you were saying, big production. Leader in the whiskey game, right? Irish whiskey was the Coke, and all other whiskeys was like the Pepsi.
That's exactly it. It was 70. I think it was 70% of all spirits in the world was Irish whiskey. So in the US, second only to bourbon. In the UK, we sold more Irish whiskey in Scotland than Scotch in Scotland. So we had it scaled up earlier. So we had, in Dublin, 40% of the people in around 1870, 40% of the people were employed in brewing and distilling in Dublin. So it was really huge. These were huge operations.
So
Exactly.
So people, go ahead.
This is one of the reasons why there isn't a huge amount of all the malted barley is impeded, because it was done at such a high volume that it didn't make any sense to do peated maltings. So
Yeah.
you have very little malt, you have very little peated whiskey in Ireland. You have obviously there's a few, and there's a few starting again. You had Connemara obviously for a long time was the only one, but it
Yeah.
wasn't a thing as much in Ireland as it was in Scotland. So everything was sort of more done on a larger scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have so much I want to talk about and add, but I'm going to hold off. I'm going to, contain myself because, and we're going to move on with the slide. All right.
Yeah,
All right. So that's next one. Heart of Clonakilty town. So this is
the
a
heart of
picture of the distillery.
yeah, and
So this
the
this is not a shabby looking place.
no, this was supposed to be the regional headquarters of a bank way back in 2007, 2008, and
Oh,
of
really?
course,
Okay.
yeah. So all that glass frontage you
Interesting.
see there, that so we bought that building as it was a shell, obviously. So they had built it and they had closed it, but there was nothing inside. So it was just bare, basically bare
Yeah.
floors. So we took out the floors, but the building is as it was built, and we just ripped out the insides of it, ripped out the floors and put in the stills right at the front. And if you ever go there, and hopefully you will at some point in time, the road just comes straight down and then turns left. So it's just, you see it right in the center of the town. It's beautifully lit up. It's really nice. It really looks good, both in the day and in the night.
Yeah.
And we put
Well, I
in,
mean, I love those big windows right there, and your pot stills and everything fit right in there. It's like it's almost like it was, it's perfect.
it is, no, it is perfect. And,
Yeah.
so the size, everything worked out perfectly. So we were looking at the size
Yeah.
that we want in terms of the capacity of the stills and everything. When we started getting it designed, it was fortuitous that the three
So
stills that
fortuitous.
we wanted were fitted exactly into the space that we have
And
there.
it's funny because sometimes you see like distilleries like moving into buildings, and then like their pot stills or column stills are like too high for the ceilings, and then they have to like cut open, or like like in Old Pulteney they had to like actually cut the still. So this is kind of quite fortuitous
Yeah,
to
it is.
to just have it perfect.
No, it is. We had to cut a floor out, obviously, in the middle to put in the stills there, but it's fine. When you walk into the floor, you get all the under the stills, where a lot of the technical equipment is hidden away nicely. So when you're doing a tour, obviously tourism is a big part of this whole thing. We have a
Yes.
tour, and when you walk in, you don't see any of the untidiness. It's all hidden away, and you just see your nice three stills there, and your gin still and everything, and it looks really good.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So it is open for tours nowadays, right? All right, let's talk about what,
Well,
what we got here.
not now, but yeah.
Oh, not
Um,
right, not yet, not right now, but supposed
so
to be.
yes, yes, yes. So the picture on the left is the flip side of the first one that you saw. So you can just see that little white building at the background is the Gallyhead Lighthouse again. And
Okay,
this picture on the left, this was just a picture that was taken last year after we had harvested the barley. And the picture on the right is an interesting one because it shows how barley has changed over the years. Because on the right is concerto barley, which is basically one of the most common strains of barley that's used in Ireland. On the left is a strain that we got from the seed bank in Ireland. They gave us like 2 or 3 pounds of it way back,
hmm,
and they said, "Well, listen, would you mind sort of recreating this strain of barley, which
yeah,
hadn't been grown in Ireland for like 80 years or something?" So you can see obviously why people stopped growing it, because it's less dense, first of all, it's higher. So when the storms come, it just flattens it completely. So you've got a yield probably of 70% of what you have from the concerto. But what we're going to do is, and I think we're going to have enough this year, like September, October, we're going to do a run for about a week of the heritage barley, and we're going to create it. We'll be able to get about 40,000 bottles, I think, out of it.
okay,
And we'll put some of this. So this will be barley, that hasn't been distilled in a long time. And we're going to put some of it in bourbon barrels, but other part of it we're going to put in the barrels that were existing way back 100 years ago, because bourbon barrels were only really brought into Ireland in 1955.
Uh-huh.
Before that, people had to use different types of barrels. So we're going to go back and
Yeah.
we're going to put some of it into the barrels that were there 100 years ago. And, we'll put that away in a corner somewhere for maybe 10 years. And then, we'll see what it's going to taste like. But it's it's a little experiment. And again, it's something, that isn't probably the most profitable thing in the world that we're going to do, but it's just an interesting thing. And it's just, and again, it's going back to the history of Irish whiskey and single pot still and everything. And it's like, well, let's find out what distilled barley tasted like, 80 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So despite this, barley strain that you guys are using being lower yield and less, and harder to manage, you guys are still wanting to use it to kind of recreate that traditional
Yes.
taste profile. And I think
Yes,
this,
exactly.
and it seems like this is a recurring theme that you guys are really respecting the history and the process here, and wanting to do things as they were, back in the day, if you will.
Yeah, I think so. We try and, obviously you have the modernity of what you have, but also you have to go back and just look at how people did it before. I mean, they did make great whiskeys before, so let's go back and just have a look at what they did, how they did it, and yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really interested in it,
Yeah.
what it's going to be like.
Exciting stuff. And I think this
Yeah.
is probably one of the first times that people are even hearing about the brand
Yeah.
and understanding, you guys aren't just another, you know, another whiskey on the shelf. You guys are really paying attention to the process and, respecting the process here.
Yeah, well, I think in some ways you sort of have to anyway. Being a small guy, you can't get away with making mistakes.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe the big guys can get away with making a mistake now and again. They can afford it. But if you're a small guy, you can't. You have to do everything right from day one. And
yeah.
we were lucky that our distiller blender, Paul, was working in Teeling in Dublin. And
Okay.
he's from Cork, and he wanted to get back out of Dublin, so it was a perfect situation for him and perfect for us.
Yeah.
So he has the experience, and he's brought that back down to us. And we got
Excellent.
the World Whiskey Awards Best New Make just a couple of weeks ago.
Very nice. Yep. 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 And you guys
So
also won for your small batch.
we got it for a small batch as well. Exactly. So
Okay.
this again, I think people can say, they look at our small batch and say, well, listen, this is a sourced whiskey. It's not yours. And we'll say, well, listen, it is as much. What we're trying to do is we're trying to show people we're taking care of what we're doing. So
Yeah.
even if it is sourced, we're finishing it differently. We do things differently. We do when we disgorge the casks, for example, we put them through a 30 micron filter rather than the standard industry, which would be like 8 or 9 microns. So if you
Okay.
disgorge a cask, for example, you've got a little bits of charcoal and everything that are
Yeah.
disgorged with the cask, right? So you have to filter that out of it. And when we started off with our filtration, we started off with like 8 or 9 microns, and the port cask was the first thing that we actually started filtering. And we noticed that the flavor profile was changing. We noticed the color was changing. And
Yeah.
then so we started asking ourselves, well, what happens if we change, if we just change the filter? And then we
Mm-hmm.
kept playing with it. And then we came to the point where we said, well, listen, this is actually a good point, which is around 30 microns. So there's
Mm-hmm.
more flavor. So if you take the same whiskey, you filter it at 8 and you filter it at 30, then you'll actually notice there is a difference in the whiskey. The other
Yeah.
thing we do is that we have on each of the bottles, you'll see what's on it. You'll see the gentle cut is written on it, which is basically, again, when you take a whiskey from cask strength down to bottling strength, you add water pretty
Yeah.
much quickly. We added over 2 weeks. So we take
Yep.
the ABV down 1%, 2%, very, very slowly. And again, we think it makes a difference on the flavor profile of the whiskey. And some other people are starting to do that now. I think we were the first people in Ireland definitely to do it.
Yeah.
and so it does, again, it does make a difference.
It does.
Obviously, we don't do chill filtering, but I mean, a lot of the craft guys don't do chill filtering. But the other two things, I think, are something that maybe not too many people are doing.
Yep. And it's so interesting because I think people talk about sourcing whiskey and doing a blend and things like that. Just because you have whiskey, not all blends are good. So there's also, I think people don't get to give people credit for producing a nice blend,
Mm.
because you could have great whiskey, and if you don't do a good job blending it, it's still going to be crap, right? Just kind of like if you're a chef in the kitchen, you have great ingredients, but if you don't know how to cook, then you're not going to be able to produce something decent, right? So kudos to
Yes.
you guys for winning best blended Irish blended whiskey here, and that's obviously a credit to you guys. But also, you were saying just even in terms of filtration, like Michter's, for example, here in the United States, they have like several different filtering processes and filtering machines and whatnot, right? And you filter a whiskey like 20 different ways, and you literally have 20 different whiskeys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And even just the temperature you filter at, or if you're chill filtering, or even like you're saying, the different microns in terms of that filter you're using, and also the water they're using, just kind of back up what you're saying as well. Old Elk Distillery, one of the master distillers over there, came from Seagram's, I believe Seagram's. They actually have I was actually able to taste a whiskey that they had where they just kind of dumped the water in there, like and started and just blended it, and they call the slow cut method,
Okay.
which is they water dilute down over a 2-3 week period, like you guys, and it tastes so much, and it tastes so different. It's the same new make, different different ways of cutting it with water, and it tastes a lot very different. And the slow cut method tastes actually a lot better. But in the whiskey industry, it's like time is money, right? So taking
And
2 weeks, yeah, so even that two
and
weeks is money.
space.
Yeah,
And
money,
space.
space, time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Salaries have to be paid, to do it every single time. But that's just another that's a testament to you guys. Hey, let's do this right. Let's do it right, even if it's going to take some time and money and effort. And I think if time will tell. Time will definitely show that you guys are going to make some great whiskey, I think.
Well,
Or you guys are already
hopefully.
making great whiskey. You guys are already making great whiskey,
Yeah.
but even better whiskey.
Yeah. No, I think it will. I mean, but to be perfectly honest, I mean, we've learned a lot from other people as well. As I said,
Right.
with myself and Mike, we spend a lot of time going around
Right. Oh yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah.
Irish distillers in Middleton have been very good to all of the new entrants in the market, where they basically have a situation where you can ring them up. They give courses on wood management. They give courses on
Yeah.
yeasts, everything, and it's one of the great things about the industry, in that the incumbents are quite happy to let you into all of their, well, not their trade secrets, but into all of their techniques and everything, to make
Yeah.
sure that you keep the standards up as well. So it's been
Yeah.
really good. They've been really good to us, and that definitely helps. I mean, there's no question about it. If we were just doing it on our own, there's always, you're just increasing the probability of making a mistake. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And that's really cool, because that was a question that I posed to you guys in terms of, um, you know, is there a camaraderie there? Is there a community there? Because you had, 3 distilleries, for the last 30 years, and then now
Yeah.
you have, 30 some distilleries that popped up in the last 10. And is there a community there? And then you said yes, undoubtedly. Even the big guys, they're even trying to help you guys, because I think they are subscribed to the ideology of the rising tide raises all ships, right? Because they want they know they can't do it alone, right? They can't, reach out to everybody. And so they see Irish whiskey as a community as a whole of, hey, let's, bring Irish whiskey back, and not like, oh, hey, you make your whiskey, I'm going to make my whiskey, and, don't compete with me
Exactly.
kind of thing,
Exactly. It's not like, let the best man win sort of thing. It's not like that at all. No.
Yeah, it's not like
I
that at
mean,
all. Yeah.
I think I could be corrected on this, but I think our total maximum production is ever only going to be like 2 days production of Jameson. So
Yeah.
from that point of view, there's nobody in Pernod Ricard lying awake at night thinking that we're going to, just take away their market position. But
Yeah.
I don't think, I haven't talked to them about it, but I don't think they have any problem at all with us coming along, with us coming in with the whiskey market. We're trying to create. I was in one of the stores in. It was actually in Pittsburgh about a month ago, and I was
Okay, there
looking
you go.
at
We got Pittsburgh Whiskey Cigar Club over here.
Yes, first time ever in Pittsburgh. Very nice.
Yeah.
I drove
Yeah.
with Red from Leadership Brands. I flew into Pittsburgh. We're doing training for the PLCB staff, basically.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And in the middle of it all, obviously with the coronavirus, they canceled it. But we got one done. But we drove across. But what I noticed with the store, the PLCB store, was a very small amount allocated to Irish whiskey versus
Yeah.
the amounts that were allocated to Canadian whiskey. But it was the same bottles in the Canadian whiskey section. So it's in all our interest in the Irish whiskey, section to try and increase it. Increase the amount of shelf space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have conversations and educate people and talk to them and explain to them, well, we have single pot still, we have malted, we have grain whiskey, and all that sort of stuff. And explain to them, it's not all, you can have great blended whiskeys. I mean, if you look at the great cognacs, the great Bordeaux wines, they're all blended.
Yeah.
There's a sort of I remember I did a tasting in Florida about 2 months ago, and this guy came in and I said, "Do you want to taste my whiskey?" Yeah, he goes, what is it, single malt or blend?" I said, "It's a blend." He said, "I'm only interested in single malt." And I said, "Well, hang on, there's some good blend. I mean, maybe you may not like it, and fair enough, but don't just say, that just because it's not a single malt doesn't mean it's good whiskey." So I think there's a little bit of education that we have to do in the Irish whiskey sector to say, well, listen, and Dennis, my colleague, this is a great bugbear of his, is that the Scots have done extremely well in convincing people that single malt is basically the gold standard of whiskey.
Yeah.
And it is very good. And of course, you can get some great single malts, but that doesn't mean that, that all single malts are great, nor does it mean that all blends are necessarily inferior to single malts.
Yeah. And I think, even with blends trying to make a name for themselves, brands like Compass Box, right? They're kind of leading the charge with, hey, blends can be amazing stuff too, which they can be. And it's funny because Robin Robinson's on. He used to be the brand ambassador for Compass Box as well, and we had hosted him in Philadelphia. All right, so blends aren't bad, guys. Blends are not bad. There's a lot of great blends out there. All right, so let's move on. Let's take a look at this. What do we have here?
We have here, and if Bob Hurley is still watching, he's seen this presentation before because I've done it once before. These are little sort of pictures. Why did Irish whiskey decline? From, let's say, its height in the 1870s, 1880s. So if you look at the top left, this is the coffee still, the famous coffee still, which was invented by an Irish guy who went over to Scotland, convinced the Scots that this was the way to make a more efficient way of making whiskey. They bought into the idea. The Irish guys said, no, we want our pot stills. This had a big fight until 1908, and then a Royal Commission in 1908, because obviously at the time we were still part of the British Empire. The Royal Commission decided that actually, yes, you can call it whiskey and you can have a grain whiskey made in a column still. You can blend it with your malt, and that's also called whiskey. So at that point in time, the efficiencies, where Ireland had a lot of efficiencies in the 19th century, we had better barley strains and everything. But the coffee still was the beginning of the end in terms of the efficiency. So we didn't adopt it; they adopted. So that's one of the reasons. Below that picture is a guy you probably don't know who he is, but he would be known to everybody in Ireland. Father Theobald Matthew.
Oh,
his name.
that's a strong Irish name right there.
strong Irish name, and he set up the temperance movement in Ireland.
Mm.
So his job was to convince people to stop drinking alcohol.
Right.
And he actually was quite successful doing it. I think he reduced the consumption like by about a third or something in the end of the 19th century. So, and even, you know, up to when I was in school, you would still take what was called a pledge, where as a 12-year-old, you would pledge not to drink alcohol until you're 18. So he had and I'm not sure if it's still going on, but he had a long-lasting effect in Ireland. So he obviously was a contributor to the lower volumes. Then obviously moving across from the coffee still, don't have to explain what that is. That's prohibition in the US.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, so you're looking at a situation where Ireland was still part of the British Empire.
Yeah.
We were selling huge amounts of alcohol into Australia, Canada, into the US, obviously. And then prohibition came along. And so prohibition was 1920, right? And we became independent in 1922. So what happened was, as well as one of our biggest markets closing down, our logistics, because when we became independent in 1922, we were no longer part of the British Empire. We had a trade war, which is the picture below. So we stopped. So basically, British ships stopped delivering whiskey to the US, Canada, Australia. But what also happened was that the Canadians were allowed to import whiskey in bottles if they were exporting it. So what happened was, in Prohibition, you had the rum was coming in through Miami. So it was coming across Barbados up through Miami and north, and whiskey was coming down from Canada. But because the whiskey was coming in bottles, and the Irish whiskey was still being delivered over while it was being delivered over, it was being delivered over in casks. The people were selling all sorts of stuff, calling it Irish whiskey, because you didn't know. You had a cask with Irish whiskey written on it, right? But you had no idea that the guy had some new spirit, put some whatever into it to color it, and just call it Irish whiskey, right?
Had the same problem here in the US.
Yeah. So that didn't help. So people started to slowly realize, well, at least I know if I'm getting a bottle of scotch, what's in the bottle, right? So there was no issue about it. Then we had the trade war. And the trade war meant that A, we couldn't really export it to the markets that were part of the British Empire. B, that the Irish government were very insular at the time. So they wanted to tax the whiskey as much as they could. So they stopped it being exported. And they taxed it really, really high. Mm-hmm. So basically, it just didn't make any sense to people. The demand fell out of the market. So it was just lower and lower and lower down, to the point where it was, I think, 300,000 to 400,000 9-liter cases a year. And it was so we had a situation where we got independence in 1922, and we were sort of stuck in this sort of stasis. Ireland didn't really develop an awful lot. It was very slow developing from right until it entered the European EEC, the European Economic Community, in 1973. Yeah. So we were very insular at the time, and that definitely had an impact on the whiskey business.
Yeah.
The guys in the top right-hand corner, well, it's a little, because the US, because of World War II, Ireland was neutral in World War II. A lot of the US soldiers are obviously in the UK, so they got used to Scotch. So they were drinking Scotch over in where they were in England and Scotland and everything. So they brought back the taste of Scotch. So when they all came back to the US, it was Scotch. And again, as the older generations died out in the US, it was just the only thing people knew about was Scotch. Yeah. And the final picture in the bottom right is a really interesting story. I just threw it in there. It has nothing to do with the decline of Irish whiskey, but you see that monkey there, Alex?
Yeah, it's a statue, I think, right? Obviously,
the statue. Yeah, he's Tojo is his name. And
Tojo,
yeah. Tojo was on a B-17 bomber.
Oh.
He wasn't flying it, but he was a passenger on it. In 1943, a U.S. bomber that crash landed just behind where the distillery is now in Clonakilty.
Okay.
and the guys got completely lost. They had no idea where they were, and they were ready to shoot their way out. And then they found out they were in neutral Ireland, so everybody was quite happy to see them. So they spent 3 days in Clonakilty drinking, waiting for their lift out of Clonakilty, basically to get the airplane started again. But the problem is, poor old Tojo was drinking as well. Apparently, he liked rum. So, so it was either the cold weather in Clonakilty or the rum that killed him. But Tojo didn't survive. And they gave him a military funeral in Clonakilty. And they brought out this statue, and the military attaché of the U.S. Embassy came down. That's him in the background, smiling. They came down as the statue was unveiled. So it's a nice little story. I've actually did a little bit of research on it. So I found one of the, I think he's the grandson of one of the guys who was on the plane. So I think we might do something just to recognize Tojo and the B-17 bomber that crash landed in Clonakilty in 1943 at some point. I think it's a nice little story.
That's very interesting. So it looks like, just from this, it's just kind of like almost like the perfect storm kind of brewing here, and all these different events that really kind of hurt the Irish whiskey industry, and one of your first pictures is, the Irish being on top saying, hey, we don't really, and it was more of a principle thing, right? Because they didn't want to hurt the integrity of Irish whiskey by using what they thought was going to hurt whiskey overall, which was the coffee still. But at the time, the Scots, they were kind of trying to fight for business because they weren't on top, right? So they were like, all right, well, we need to make ends meet too, and I can't blame them, and they need it. So a lot of times they're producing whiskey for gin to be to ship down to the UK to make gin, right? So they're just like they're just trying to make money by producing as much alcohol as possible, and that just wasn't what the Irish was trying to do. And then so that was kind of like the beginning, the end, and in your story here, and then obviously we got the lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours, classic classic photo. With these women. I think it was I can't remember the woman's name. I think it was Terry Hatchett. Can somebody chime in? There was a woman who went around with a hammer and axe and just smash bottles out of people's hands during the Prohibition here in the United States.
Somebody will know. Yeah. But the other thing is that in 1933, then when Prohibition was lifted, there was no stocks of Irish whiskey. So the Scots were. So that was the other thing. So when the whole thing was restarted, there was just so little stock left because of what was going on in Ireland internally with the new Irish
Kerry Nation. Kerry Nation. I knew somebody was going. Why did I get the Kerry Hatchet? I don't even know. I guess Kerry Nation. And then we actually had the message to a few last week. Which was they started a distillery in Chicago where the Prohibition movement started there in that specific county. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Somebody said that was her nickname. Yeah, Kerry Nation and Kerry Hatchet. That was her nickname. That's right. Yeah, great.
Excellent. So, so these are ads that I did a little bit of search on how Irish whiskey was being sold in the 70s. So this is still the period where Pernod Ricard hadn't invested in Irish distillers. Tullamore was before William Grant's bought it in. So if you can see there, I mean, you don't have to be psychologists to see that we're having some serious issues. They're trying to figure out, or you don't have to be from Mad Men to know that we have identity issues going on here. So we're trying to say to ourselves, well, listen, we're Irish whiskey, but we're like Scotch, but we maybe could be better than Scotch, or you can use it for Irish coffee. Let's give them like this. this wouldn't be any Scotch if it weren't for us. There wouldn't be any Scotch if it wasn't for us Irish. You know, so for me, that's telling. You know, we're just lost. We don't know where we are. We don't know what we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that. So you're still, you can see we're in the struggling phase here.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was 1988 when Pernod purchased Irish Distillers, and John Teeling set up Cooley in 1987. So they were, let's say, they were the two big changes that were the first sort of reasons that Irish whiskey is where it is now. So you had Pernod obviously had a different, brought investment into the brand, and Cooley reignited some of the older brands, but also was able to supply in some brands for, into the US, into some of the bigger stores and all the rest of the stuff. So it actually got Irish whiskey out and about more than what people would have been used to seeing up to then. So if you go on to the next page. Please.
Yeah, well, so I just want to comment on this. It's such a great, ad here. Our Irish whiskey could become the greatest name in Scotch. So it's kind of like, it's like you were saying. It's like, hey, they're trying to ride the coattails back then of Scotch whiskey and its success, and instead of trying to identify as Irish whiskey, they want to try to build that relationship between Irish whiskey and Scotch because everybody was drinking Scotch. And and it was a little and it's unfortunately it's quite sad, but that's kind of your point here. It's like the whole entire marketing campaign is trying to be like Scotch or
chip away a little bit from the Scotch market and you sort of be happy, we can get a little bit. We can fool maybe a Scotch drinker to take an take a Jameson or Tullamore Dew instead of, a blended Scotch or whatever, so. It's that's the 70s, so that's like 40 years ago.
That's sad. Yeah. It's sad times for whiskey in general, I think. It's also a sad time for whiskey in general. That's when we have, everybody drinking vodka and wine and beer and stuff, right? So, all right.
So you can see straight away the whole different attitude in these Jameson ads.
Yeah.
And why do we have a situation now in, let's say, the US where the average Scotch drinker is probably about 20 years older than the average Irish whiskey drinker? Yeah. And that's because that, let's say, there was an effort to go for the younger drinker. So you have Jameson, you drink it with friends. It's fun. It's a fun drink. So a friend around the world, Russia or LA, drinking buddy. So you're creating a sense of being with people, being with your friends. And they obviously, they spend money in that sort of age group, on the logic, and this is the logic, obviously, that as they get older, then, they're going to have a few more bucks in their pocket and they're going to be able to pay more for premium whiskeys. And so if you look at even now where Pernod are promoting, let's say, Redbreast and the Redbreast range, that's only, I would say, on the last couple of years. I mean, you'd know in the US, Redbreast wasn't that popular a couple of years ago in the US, right?
Well, what the heck was Redbreast,
Yeah. So they've gone in there. So they're also, educating people what single pot still is. And Redbreast obviously is wondreful whiskey. There's no question about that. I don't think anybody for a second would say anything otherwise. So and they've rebranded. Their labeling is perfect. That the 27-year-old bottle that they have is absolutely wonderful. So you're getting a feeling of super premium. You're getting it. So this is something, that you're not embarrassed to drink. So if you go back to those from the 70s, you're sort of, I'll buy this, but maybe I'll drink it on my own, sort of thing, right? You wouldn't want anybody seeing you drinking James, but now you have the ad campaigns of Jameson. We'll see the ad campaign of Tullamore Dew, the ad campaign now of Redbreast, and everything is perfect, So I would unashamedly say that we're riding on those guys' coattails, where we, at least when we're talking to people about Irish whiskey, we don't have to start from zero. They know other brands, and now they're asking questions about Redbreast and where do we fit in with that. etc. So that's great for us. That saves us an awful lot of time and money trying to explain to people what we're trying to do. And then we sort of what I try and do is say, well, listen, we're going for single pot stills. So we're going to be producing something that we would love to think is as good as Redbreast. But in the meantime, we have source whiskey, and we're doing the different types of finishes, and we're having a little bit of fun with some of the finishes and all the rest of the stuff. But all the time, we're trying to keep the quality up, and that's
Yeah.
that's where we are on the whole thing.
Well, so it's very interesting. Marketing works, guys, because, I'm in my 30s, and when I was in my 20s in school or out of school working and out there, mingling and whatnot, going out, having fun, like what was I drinking? I was drinking Jameson, like when we we're taking, back in the shot days, back in the taking the shot days, Jameson, and even just
Yeah.
Jameson on the rocks when I was out, it kind of, before that it was maybe like Johnny on the rocks, and then it was kind of like more like Jameson on the rocks, and then all my friends were drinking Jameson when we're going out, we would buy Jameson, taking
But it was
shots of
cooler, right?
Jameson.
It was cooler than Johnny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, and it's interesting. It's just because, and it just goes to show that marketing works.
Yeah.
And so, people like myself is exactly who this ad was directed at, and it's just so funny that you mentioned it, and it's just, and now you're exactly right. Now I'm older, have a family, I have more disposable income. So guess what? I am drinking Redbreast,
Yeah.
and people in my age category are going out and buying the Redbreast 27 and things like that. Uh, um, yeah, it's quite this slide is quite poignant, by the way. So
Brings back some memories.
yeah, it does, and yeah, and I keep, I got flashbacks of those days. Yeah, it's funny. Anyways,
Yeah.
all
So
right.
Tullamore Dew obviously upped their game as well. They've sort of gone a little bit more Irishy, I would say. I think that there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know if you've seen some of their ads. They have some really interesting ads on YouTube and everything, but they're more sort of Irish centric than Jameson, I would say. And I'm not a marketing expert, but I think you can see that through their ads as well. So you've got Irish True. They're also going for the Friends, and they're going for that as well. But there's a more of an Irish feel to it, I would say.
Yeah.
And again, nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely works fine for them, and it works well. Nice whiskey, absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Just a little bit
Yep.
different from what Jameson were doing.
Right. And we definitely see a change in the identity of Irish whiskey. And obviously, there's no mention of Scotch whiskey or anything like that here.
No,
This
exactly.
is building the identity of Irish whiskey, the Irish history. I mean, you got this guy with a, robust red beard over here on this Tullamore Dew ad, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
So it's
there's a self
very,
confidence there that
yeah, a
wasn't
lot
there
of self
before.
confidence, a lot of you know, yeah, a lot of confidence there. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is, I suppose, again, for the accountants watching than for the
Yeah.
whiskey nerds, where Irish whiskey is in comparison with, Scotch, US, Canadian.
I just
Where,
want to put this up, but you can still continue talking. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what you see, so the space that we want to be in, if you look at which is like the premium and super premium space. Oh, there we go. It's in
Right.
the very top, so it's the sort of white and the sort of I suppose brownish gray. Yeah.
You can
So
see my
there's
pointer here, right? Yeah.
yeah. So that's the Scotch. So you look at how little that is of the total Irish whiskey market versus
Yeah.
Scotch versus the US whiskey market and even the Canadian. So we have a lot to go in building the premium and
Yeah.
super premium. There's an awful lot more opportunities there in the Irish whiskey segment, and I think that really shows it there how far away we are, even just from
Yeah.
just the average, which is on the fifth bar on the right. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that encouraged us that we're in the right space, basically. That there is growth there.
And this is interesting. It's just because, if you look at all the other whiskey categories, right? Irish whiskey is the only one out of the four listed here as having that much space in the standard value category, and such a small market, such a small space in the premium and super premium and ultra premium, right? Everybody else is more kind of like, more diversified. And it's actually interesting because the U.S. whiskey, I wasn't expecting this. This is the first time I'm seeing something like this too, but it's almost half of the categories under in the premium category in U.S. whiskey. Actually interesting.
I think premium is like above $34 or something.
Yeah,
like that. So,
exactly.
I mean, there is a lot if you think about it. I mean, there is a lot of whiskeys in that space.
And I guess people are just drinking. And so if just imagine the potential there. If Irish whiskey was under Irish whiskey, it looked just like U.S. whiskey does, right? And that's huge. That's huge right there. Huge potential, right? And on the bottom here, what do we have here in the little pie chart here?
Yeah, so that's just basically where what's being produced. So basically, a lot of it is blended, as you see. So 90% of it is blended. Some of it is going, or most of it is obviously, it's Jameson, it's Tullamore Dew, it's the brands you see in Total Wine and Costco and all the rest of the stuff. So that's basically where the market is. Very small amount of single malt and pot still, which is 8%, which is growing.
Yeah.
And that's it's just. Right, for the accountants, I would say more than the whiskey nerds. Just a little bit of. I'm an accountant, so I also have to.
Oh, really? Okay, great. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting too because you can see the correlation between the 90% blended and the 92% in the standard value range.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
It's almost exactly reflective because if you're looking at pot still 8%, that's almost kind of like the premium 6% that you're seeing. Single malts 2%, 1%, right? So it's almost a direct reflection of what's happening here in terms of the different whiskeys being offered, right? And so if there's more pot still or more single malts and less blended, obviously that you're going to see more profit in terms of the spirits being produced. So this is super interesting. This is a very awesome slide. Did you guys make this yourself, or is this like available somewhere?
We got it done for some presentation we were doing, but it's ours. But I think we got the information with the Irish Whiskey Association gave us the information. I can see that.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So this is great. Bob Hurl.
Yeah, no, it's a great picture. Yeah.
Bob says some of us whiskey nerds are accountants. So. And Soul. I'm sorry. Is Soul A or Soul? Soul is saying this is wonderful. So this is definitely some of us really appreciate this.
Delight.
All right. So this here is the map here of the.
Yeah. So basically, from I think it was 1966, where you had there was two distilleries going. Basically, you had Bushmills in the north, and you had the New Middleton Distillery which is probably number 12. It's down in the south anyway.
Yeah,
and, it's so small. It's so small, yeah. But I mean, so you had Cooley so the third distillery was in 1987. And then the fourth distillery was in 2010, which was Kilbeggan. So there was there was a slowly, and of course these things, with whiskey in the industry that it is, it's not .com stuff. So it takes a while for this stuff to actually grow. But I mean, there was tough times as well in the 80s, and John Teeling, who set up Cooley, will say, that he was finding it tough, and there was a couple of times where it was touch and go. But thankfully he stuck with it. He was able to raise the funds and keep it going. And because of, Bushmills, because of Pernod, because of John Teeling and Cooley, we are where we are now, where you have, and of course, so you have the situation now, we have the big guys.
He's right here is 7.
Yes, that's us. Yeah.
Yeah. Neighbors are West Cork and Irish Distillers Court.
Middleton,
So right here, Middleton, And then people can go to Drinks Ireland Irish Whiskey Association to download this, I imagine. So yeah.
And it makes we have this thing called the Wild Atlantic Way. So basically, you can start at the Northern Ireland and go all the way down the west coast and try and visit some distilleries along the way.
Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice. It's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. So so like we said earlier, really since 1980s, there's only 3 distilleries, and the rest of these popped up since then. And so talk about Renaissance, right? Like talk about this growth, and it's just and we're seeing the same trend here in the United States, right? We literally you had 2,000 plus distilleries open up in the last like 10 15 years, craft distilleries. So huge growth here.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, I suppose because where we're distributing at the moment is along the East Coast, I started to get into some really nice rye whiskies.
Okay.
And I love just tasting so many of them. And again, it's it's to do with tariffs and all the rest of the stuff. There's not enough of them over in Europe,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but again, they have the economies of scale don't help it either. But I went to Hidden Still Spirits. Do you know these guys? They're in Lebanon, and I went to see they're about to move to Hershey, right beside the fun park. And we took a cask from those guys. We put it down to Roy Pitts. He put some smoky porter in it that he was doing for Gary Owen, a pub down in Gettysburg. That cask is now back in Ireland. We filled it with whiskey, and we're going to put it back into the Pennsylvania market. But I'd love to get some rye barrels off David and bring them to Ireland also, and it'd be interesting. There hasn't been that many. I'm not sure if there's one. I think there's only one Irish whiskey that has been finished in rye barrels. I think it'd be an interesting little project to see how it would be.
Kilbeggan makes a whiskey that's partially uses rye.
Yes, it does.
Grains. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was a big hit. That was a big hit, actually. So we did a tasting with them before, and people loved it. People were like, that was like one of the hits of because we actually did like a little Irish whiskey exhibition last year, and then that was like the crowd favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's nice stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah.
But to talk about rye, you guys should talk to. If you're talking about Pennsylvania, you guys should talk to eventually Dad's Hat Rye. They're a really up and coming, award-winning rye whiskey, and we actually did a rye cask with them. And I would love to try something that you guys made in aged in their casks.
Yeah. Look, we're open to all that. If the idea is good, if it sounds good, and we can make it happen. And there's a sort of if we feel the culture is right, if there's a fit in terms of the culture fit, then let's just do it. Why not? Let's have a little bit of fun along the way.
Yeah. All right. So we have here on the slide.
So we have here. This is where we've come to, right? So we're now in 2020. So obviously we have the Redbreast range, which are now 5, and I think I can't even see if the 27. No, the 27 is there, so you've got 6 now, right? Because the 27-year-old isn't there because the bottle is different. You have that, so that's now the super premium single pot still. Below you have a blended whiskey, which was sold for like around $8,000.
Yeah.
Called the Chosen from J.J. Corey. You have to the right of it, then you have a Teeling, which is 30-year-old, which I think was like $2,000 a bottle. And above it then is Middleton, which was sold for like 35,000, I think, euros or dollars a bottle. So if you could wind the clock back to the 1970s, and if you told somebody who worked in Irish distillers that this would happen in 2020, he would think you're absolutely crazy, right?
Yeah.
So there's no way that anybody could have foreseen that this would have been possible. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
it is crazy, but so people are spending it, and obviously people, aren't probably buying this as much to drink as to keep, as holding it as an investment and just something to have as a keepsake as well. But that's
Collectors,
great.
yeah.
That's again, Scotch guys have been. I'm not sure how many of the American whiskeys are for sale at that price, but definitely in Asia. If you go into a duty free in Asia, or you go in Dubai and everything, you'll see a bottle for
Yeah.
$20,000 somewhere, right? Always.
What is I went through a duty free, and Woodford Reserve had a whiskey put in this Baccarat, crystal. I think it was like $10,000. I can't remember how much it was now. I can't remember. It was something ridiculous, and it was like one of those ridiculous things that you see that's just like, wow, you would never see something like that. And not to say anything bad about Woodford. Woodford's a great whiskey, but but they're even because Macallan uses the Lalique crystals, right? They use the Lalique bottles or the Lalique crystal bottles, and they sell that. Woodford put this ridiculous whiskey. I think it was. I remember now. It was whiskey finishing cognac casks put into this I think it was Baccarat crystal decanter, and I think it was like a few $1,000s. I can't remember how much it was, but I was like, wow, that is a beautiful bottle, and kudos to the person who can afford it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one here. All right, so let's go back to your award-winning whiskey right here.
Exactly. So I suppose I should talk. Am I allowed to talk about our whiskey at some point in the evening?
Yeah. We still got plenty of time.
We have plenty of time. Great. What is it? 2209. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And this is the same whiskey as you see there. We just changed the label a bit. We had a blue label at the bottom instead of just the all white label. This won the World Whiskey Awards. Blended. It's the best Irish blended whiskey. And what is interesting, what we've done with this is that obviously it's spent most of its life in bourbon barrels. And then we've taken it out. We've put 70% in American virgin oak, and we've put 30% into what are called Neoc casks, NEOC.
Neoc.
And the Neoc. So Neoc basically is the second generation from STR casks, so shaved, toasted, recharred casks, which were invented by Dr. Jim Swan, the late Dr. Jim Swan. So what Alex has done there, Sacon, and he's down in the Cognac region of France. He's taken European oak casks, either cognac or red wine casks, and he's shaved them. But he shaved them deeper, so that the STR casks were sort of just shaved in a sort of rotating sort of thing. But he shaved them deeper and from the top down, and then they're toasted. They're toasted for 1.5 hours. So
wow!
Lightly toasted, but they're not charred at all.
Oh, okay.
So, and it really brings out some of the flavors of the whiskey. We had the Neoc was something that we only came across. I think it was about 16 months ago, and we were trying with it. We were playing around with different sort of finishes for our single batch. But the Neoc definitely brought out some different spices, some sort of peppers and everything. And it really, unfortunately, this is not for sale in Pennsylvania. It's for sale online in Pennsylvania, but it's not in the liquor store. It's not that anybody can go to a liquor store, but you can buy it online with Leadership Brands. But it really is. We would have
we call that slow. The special online order, the special. Yeah. You can get it on special online, right?
Yeah. But for people who drink, I would say that if you have, let's say we would have 3 whiskeys, if I can show them 1 second. Our best-selling whiskey in the US is the port cask finish, which is this one, which is for sale in the PLCV.
Belinda's drinking it right now, she says. Belinda.
Yeah. Does she like
Pittsburgh. This is really cool, and I want to make a comment about this is because craft distillers or small distillers, you guys are really leading the way in terms of innovation,
Yeah.
And this, just the STR or NEOC, Kavalan also is doing the same thing with STR, shaving, toasting, recharring, and they're making great whiskeys. And you guys you following the same method. Jim Swan, he's a brilliant man. Fortunately he's not with us anymore. But obviously you guys won. World Whiskey Awards, World Spirits Competition, double gold, IWSC. So
Yeah.
this is just it's being confirmed that this is good whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. And we enter some competitions. We enter the ones which with blind tasting in them. We don't really enter too many competitions where people are seeing what they're trying, right? So, and I think that's the best way to judge, yourself against your peers.
Do you want to? Unfortunately, I don't have a sample with me, and we'll have to change that eventually. But do you want to take a little sip and then tell us what you get on that, or and just kind of share? We can drink vicariously through you.
So I'm going to pour in this. We have this glass as well, which is called a Tua glass. And you've seen this glass, have you, before?
Yes. Yep. I never used it before, but what's the name of the glass again?
It's Tua, Tuath, which means like family or tribe in Irish.
Tuath.
Yes, and it's
family.
pronounced Tua. Yeah, family. And a lot of the smaller craft distilleries are using it. The lady who designed it is Irish. So.
Very nice. Very lovely glass.
No, it is. It's a beautiful glass. So the other thing you can do is you can sort of turn it on its side. It rests on its side, which I can't show you like that. But it's really, you can put a nice 2 ounce pour in it and it rests on the side. Nice. So what you're getting at the start, you're getting. Oh, well, there you have it in front. I'm reading it. I can read it in front of me as well. Yeah, soft spices, vanilla, ripe apples and pears. I sometimes add a little bit of water to it, but this is a whiskey. I'm gonna
blow you up. I'm gonna blow you up here. So
okay, great.
We can get a look at that glass and whiskey there.
So there's no caramel in it as well, obviously. So people
natural
sometimes
color.
look at the color. Natural color, exactly. And you have
Damien Cashman says, enjoying a splash with you, Patrick. With the D, he's using the D spelling. And he's saying Padraic. He's using the the real, keeping it real spelling, and then he's saying Slanja.
Yes.
Linda says that I think he'll give me either a sample or something like that. She says I'll get you one. Thank you. Yeah.
So it's a 43.6 ABV. So
yeah,
but it's a smooth whiskey. When I do whiskey tastings, people who really like their whiskeys, who are whiskey people, will go for this one. Whereas people who are, let's say, who like their bourbons or maybe are coming across from rum or whatever, will like the port cask more because it has more, let's say, more fruits in it.
Do you guys have sorry to cut you off. Do you guys have a standard ABV release? Like, is it all 43.6 or is it varies?
It's most of them are 43.6, but the Imperial Stout cask finish that we did for Connecticut, Paul reckoned it was better at 50.1, so we stopped putting it at 50.1.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's down to Paul, so he makes the call on that.
Yeah, nice.
But we won't. We'll mix and match. We don't have a problem with that. Because we're not a big industrial unit. We can do small batches. Obviously, if you're making this stuff, then you're going to try and, if you make it right and you have won your awards, you can say, right, stop. That's exactly now the way it should be done. So let's just try and keep it that way as much as we can. Obviously, each cask is going to be slightly different. So, the difference between the batches would be, and these are like, so this is 1,600 bottles. So that's, that's like 4 casks or something. Would be, obviously, each cask is different. So Paul will just have to figure out how long it's in the cask in the virgin oak, or how long it's in the NEOC cask before he disgorges it. So there's always going to be that slight difference in each of the batches. And there might be a little bit of difference in the color. there might be a difference in the flavor, but not a lot, but they're always going to be a little bit different. But I think people understand that, this is craft, right? So I didn't realize I was doing a bourbon course that small batch in Kentucky is 250,000 bottles. Which is slightly different from our small batches, which are basically I've got 1,000 and I've got like 1,600. So slightly different definition of small batch, we would say in Ireland. But
yes, Earl asked. Earl, yes, we touched on that earlier. They are sourcing their whiskey and they are doing some cask finishes, and they are blending their own until their own distillate is ready. Yep.
Yeah. So we do. Yeah. So we have some older source whiskey as well. As I said, we've got about 10 casks of 15-year-old single malt, and basically they're all allocated to the US. So whiskey clubs or whatever can come over to Ireland, can sit down with Paul, test the cask, and they can just buy the cask off us, and we'll put a label on it. We'll send it back out to each, and we'll try and keep one to each state. But yeah, no, that's the advantage of we're small enough that we can give that sort of service, but we're large enough that we can we have the logistics of getting it from Ireland, label it, and getting it out to the US. Because there's a lot of steps along the way in getting it from A to B.
Belinda asked how many other states in the U.S. is sold, and I think you mentioned last time about 10 or a dozen states or so.
Yeah, it's about a dozen. Hopefully, so it's along basically the northeast all the way down to Florida. We're not in the Carolinas. We're not yet in New Jersey. Hopefully, we will be in New Jersey in August, September.
Yeah,
but in
PA,
New York,
Connecticut, DC, Maryland.
Yeah,
or not DC, Maryland.
Yeah, we're in DC as well. Yeah,
okay, DC,
New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And Delaware.
Just in case anybody's listening and watching, you guys want to go out and grab it. Are you guys in Texas?
No, we're not. Not yet.
Texas, not yet. California?
I was in. Not yet. California being the most expensive state in the world to actually be in brand. If California was a country, it would be the 6th biggest importer of Irish whiskey if it was a country. So it's a huge market.
Oh, really?
But because to really, what we try and do is we try to have somebody on the ground in each of the markets. So Damien is in Connecticut, so he's responsible, let's say, for all that area.
Okay.
So we don't. So when we're talking to distributors, also this is the challenge. Is obviously distributor you get into. We're in with RNDC, we're in with Southern Glazers. We're just one small brand in the whole book, right? So we have to do the selling. Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to work, and we figured this out early on. We started as a trial in both in New York and in Florida because we could self-distribute there. You don't need a distributor. So our importer was basically our distributor, just to test if we were right in terms of the pricing, in terms of the labeling, what were the reactions for people, were we getting our story right? And then we were happy enough with that, and then we started going out talking to distributors. But from our point of view, we make the commitment to the distributor that we'll have somebody basically in each of the markets to assist in actually getting the sales out, because otherwise. We're basically investing as much as we sell in the US, we're investing it back into the US. So, this is the biggest market for us. We have to make sure that it's a success.
Yeah. Let's take a look at your pour cast. Do you have a pour of that? Can you give us like a close up of your 2 glasses, closer to the camera? We can take a look at the color and.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to open this.
Ooh, fresh cork, fresh bottle there.
Fresh bottle, yeah.
Definitely, the color is a little darker, right? And and so we did talk about this earlier. You guys did change the filter on this bottle particularly, right?
Yeah, we did. Fresh. So if you can see,
to keep more of the the flavors in there instead of having such a fine filter.
Exactly. So you have your fresh, you have your ripe peaches. You can see probably the color in the bottle more.
Yeah,
it's probably better to show it in the bottle than.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah,
you can see the 2. Yeah.
So
as I said,
you mind if I ask you how long was it finished in the pour cast?
About 3 months, but again, it depends on the cask.
Okay.
So some casks react faster than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the art. That's the art of the blending. Knowing exactly at what point you have to take it out of the port cask. So
Yeah.
Paul's job every Monday or whatever is to try each cask and see where is it ready and all the rest of stuff, and then we just disgorge it at that point.
Whiskey Bible gave it a thumbs up. It seems right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
As I
what do
said,
you get? What are you getting on the palate there? When you're drinking
you're
it?
getting this fruitiness in it, and
Yeah.
this is the whiskey that brings people into the Irish whiskey category.
Yeah.
So where the first one is people who are in the Irish whiskey category already. This one, the port cask, as I said, is our biggest seller in the US. People
Okay.
at tastings, just who aren't necessarily Irish whiskey, who've maybe never even tasted Irish whiskey, or maybe have tasted Jameson or whatever. They go for the port cask. They just say this is a
Sweeter, I
really
imagine. Sweeter.
a little bit, yeah. I'd say a little
Yeah.
bit fruitier. Yeah, some people get put off when you use the word sweeter, although it is obviously a little bit. We would say it's a
A
little
little
bit
bit more
fruitier.
rich.
Yes, yes,
I'll
exactly,
say that. A little more
exactly.
rich. But Americans have a sweet tooth. We love our cheesecake factory over here, and super heavy cakes and cookies and whoopie pies, and for those that know that, carrot cakes. We have a sweet tooth, man.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
we love our sweet whiskeys or rich whiskeys, and port. Because people love your ports, your Madeiras,
yeah,
your Sauterne casks. Those are always good stuff. Sherry casks. So yeah, especially bourbon being such a rich just whiskey in general. Um, yeah,
yeah,
I can understand why people enjoy the port cask.
yeah. Which is, this was the first one we got listed in Pennsylvania. So,
Yeah.
one last pitch. We just got launched in Pennsylvania just before the stores shop, which is a Bordeaux. So this is a single grain.
Oh, okay.
So up to now we've been talking about blended. So this is
Interesting.
a single grain, which is like 10-year-old grain at this stage, in a Bordeaux, finished in a Bordeaux cask.
Very nice.
And this was described to me, I think, very well by a lady. She said, this is like a breakfast whiskey. This is one that you can really just start with. Very light, but still at the same time, there has a complexity in it. So it's really,
Yeah.
really nice whiskey. And the
Very
guys
refined. When you're talking about wine in Bordeaux, it's like, it's very elegant. I guess you could say.
exactly, exactly. So you're going to
Yeah.
get like strawberries and red berries. And the
Mm.
PLCB ordered a cask strength as well for
Ooh,
this.
yeah. Okay.
So that arrived in New Jersey. So hopefully that's going to be shipped, in the next week or so.
Cask
So whenever,
strength Bordeaux cask, guys. That sounds delicious. What's the ABV on the cask strength?
I think it's around 57.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's obviously
Oh,
the 10 year
Belinda's
old,
drinking
right?
it. Oh, Belinda. Yeah. Well, yeah. Belinda's really getting the experience right now. That sounds delicious, by the way. That sounds delicious. Because I'm obviously avid whiskey drinker, and I like the ABV a little higher.
You like it higher, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just because I want it as unadulterated as possible. Straight from the cask, the better. So right here, you guys
Yeah.
making a gin too, and this
Yes.
bottle is beautiful, also award winning. I can see the
Yes.
little, things, the little
Yes.
medallions on there.
And the interesting thing about this gin is that like 99.9% of gin in the world is made from a neutral grain spirit base.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you add your juniper, etc. This is the base for this is whey alcohol, which is a byproduct of cheese manufacturing.
Mm,
So the cows on
yeah.
the Scully's
Interesting.
farm on 8 generations, and as a byproduct of it, it goes to the processing plant for the cheese, and out pops whey, and they distill that. And this process of distilling whey, I think, was invented in Ireland in the 70s.
Yeah.
And they send it back, so we
But there
send
is
it
still
back.
juniper in this, right? There is
Oh no,
still,
of course, as a gin,
yeah,
it
yeah,
has to be.
okay,
But
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so, so your basis is
yeah.
actually the mouthfeel is completely different. So you
Interesting.
may you may have, and I'm sure you've had whey alcohol before. You haven't even realized that it's in some of the Irish cream liqueurs that you have. The
Ah,
smoothness of a cream liqueur comes obviously from the cream, but also from the fact there's whey alcohol in it as well as whiskey. So really nice mouthfeel on it. And we've got like 14 different botanicals in it. We do 4 different distillations. So we distill in season and then we put it aside. So we're distilling the citruses, we'll distill them in like February. The rock samphire, which is the main botanical, is right. We harvested right on the coast, right
tell us
outside.
about rock samphire, because
Yeah.
people don't usually hear about rock samphire.
No, it's something. I think it grows in some places in the US, but generally it grows in the south of Ireland and a little bit in the south of England. It's like an aniseed. It's like a plant, but it's sort of aniseed. It's not necessarily salty, but there's a sort of an aniseed flavor on it. And people put it in their salads in Ireland. And we had some challenges getting it approved in the US because obviously
Interesting.
people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But what the mixologists like about it is you can make a different gin cocktail just because the mouthfeel is completely different. And what we decided we wanted to do is we worked with Julia and Ernie, who worked with us on designing the gin, was a sipping gin. So this isn't something, if you drink a lot of gins, if you drink them neat, it'll just catch you in the back of the throat, right? A little bit, even if it's only 40% ABV gin or even 37. This is so smooth. And it's like, this 43.2 is really, really smooth. And I always challenge people to drink it neat and not try and drink it with a tonic, just to start off with, and just the astonishment on people's faces as they drink it. And it's like, this can't be 43.2%. I said, it is because of the base, the base spirit is completely different. And so it's something, I think in the US is one of the differences in the US versus Ireland is that people don't drink gin and tonic in the US, whereas but a lot of people, come home from work and they'll just do a gin and tonic to sort of relax, So there's a lot of gin consumed at home in Ireland, in England, in Spain. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so that's us.
Yeah, so you share this picture with me.
Yeah.
You share this picture with me here. This is harvesting rock samphire on the coast right here.
Exactly.
Looks kind of dangerous, actually. So you guys are risking, they're risking your lives for people
life
to drink
and limb.
this.
How many people can say that?
Look at this.
People's
This
lives
is like,
put at risk.
Yeah, look at this. So they're really dedicated to this gin right here.
Dedicated to the cause, exactly. So it just grows like 3 or 4 meters above the high water level of the sea.
Interesting.
And you harvest it in like July and August because then storms come in and just wipe it all away. So you just harvest it, and then again we distill it straight away and put it aside then, and then we just blend it back in. So we do 4 different distillations of the gin, which isn't normal. I think there's only a few gins that do more than one actual.
So you guys are using the redistillation method?
Yes.
For your gin, absolutely. So you're putting your botanicals in there with then distilling it,
macerating it, and then distilling it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So it's not like vapor infused or some other method or
No, just classical maceration and distillation.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm but also we didn't really talk about this as much, but tell us about the label here. I mean, you guys obviously spent probably quite a bit on the branding and the label, because these are like world-class labels, right? So tell us a little about this, and what is that little is that a whale's tail there?
Yes, the minke. It's the minke whale. So if you go to Ireland, the minke whale, it's a whale that in September it appears off this just exactly right in front of our fields, our barley fields there. So it sort of hangs around Ireland around September. It goes from like all the way from Iceland down, ends up in Japan. Some of them don't get out of Japan, but it's
fish.
Yeah, exactly. So the minke whale. So there'll be a lot of like whale viewing and stuff like that out from Galley Head, just where we are in August,
Right.
September. It's a really great sight to see whales breaching. It's an amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're absolutely amazing.
Only
Creatures.
videos. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of
So
like
we
your
did.
unofficial mascot right there. So is that the
It is. It
unofficial
is
Clonakilty mascot there, the minke whale? Because
exactly.
it's on all your
Exactly.
bottles. It's on all your bottles.
It is. It is. It is. And we teamed up this year with the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society in Massachusetts as sort of we were a sponsor, and we were going to do a big sort of push in New England and Rhode Island and everything, for gin on trade and this year. But obviously with everything happening on trade, we have to postpone that for a year anyway.
Yeah.
But we worked on the labels. One of the interesting things, and this came from our tour in Scotland, when myself and Michael, we were in, there's this famous bar in Edinburgh. I can't remember. They have like the most whiskeys in the world or whatever. And we were sitting in the bar and we couldn't order most of the whiskeys. We couldn't see the labels because the labels are so small or the print is so small. So we said, well, if we're going to do a label, we want to design a label that you can actually see from a distance. So if you're in a bar, you want to be able to read the name.
Good. The white background. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we wanted, and then we wanted a bottle that was a sort of a nice bottle that people then would take off the shelf in the liquor store that people would actually want to take off the shelf and hold, So we worked with the food board, the Irish food board. They're really, really good. There's some really, really good marketing guys. And the guy who designed the label was actually a Scots guy who had worked for Bowmore and a few of the other Scotch. And he really came up. It is beautiful. It is a nice label.
Yeah. I mean, you guys put a lot of effort into it, for sure. I mean, it's not just a, my daughter drew this and this picture and I slapped it on the bottle, kind of thing.
No.
Which you do see a lot of that right now, just in the craft, just because people don't have maybe the backing to really the financial backing to do this. But and we didn't mention this before. You guys spent 10 million euros on the distillery and all of this. So you guys did, you guys are trying to do it right? You guys, putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. I think that was the decision. If we're going to do it right, and it was like the trick was, or the difficult question was, well, then how big do you want to be? And if you get to a certain size, but you have to be in the US, right? But if you're in the US, then you have to have a certain critical mass because you have to be able to afford to have people over in the US, people knocking on doors and going into liquor stores and all the rest of the stuff. So you can either be very small or very big, and there's sort of a small space in the middle that there's a few distilleries in it in Ireland, but we're in one of those so big enough to actually try and be in, the critical states in the US.
Yeah.
Obviously not straight away, over the next couple of years. We're going to have to be obviously in Texas and California. We're in Oregon already. Sean Michael, the founder's son, is in Oregon, doing very well.
Okay.
And it's interesting because if you look at buyer habits of people in Oregon, people love the story and they're very much attracted to the story and the fact that it's craft, whereas people certainly in some of the states in the eastern side are more interested in what the price is. So the first question is rather what the price is, whereas in Oregon it's like, well, what's the story? And I love the story and the craft, and you obviously, what you make your claims about being craft and all the things we do, you have to be able to stand by them, obviously. And we always say to people, listen, you're more than welcome to knock on our door in Ireland, and we'll take you up to the warehouse, or we'll show you this and show you that. So everything these days obviously has to be completely authentic, and I think that's something that appeals to whiskey people now, because there's so many stories, there's so many brands, and so many people are coming that their grandfather's recipe.
Authenticity is important.
You look at the back of the label where it's made, and you're wondering how his grandfather's recipe is, but you know what I'm saying, so that we looked at that as well, and we sort of said, well, that's not going to last. So if there is a shake up in the industry, then we need to be standing. If there is a shake up, and we need to be able to stand obviously over everything that we say.
Yeah. That's excellent. Let me just bring us back here. And right here, I guess we have a couple of ending slides here.
Just ending slides, yeah. Some things that are sort of our marketing and advertising guys. We're trying to talk about our personality, you know, the brand personality and all the rest of the stuff. It was just sort of, if you look at what Tullamore Dew were doing, if you look at the Perna were doing, so these were like sort of interesting ads that I liked. I thought they were great, you know.
Yep. Okay, so we got a little bit of Gaelic here.
Go on tell me. What does it say? I'll give you a free bottle.
And I see Slanja. I see Slanja.
You see Slanja, exactly.
Slanja and Enva, right?
So it's like Mila Mahagwiv, which is thank you, plural, and Slanja to your health. Yeah. So thank you very much and to your health. That's what it says.
Okay. Can you say that? Could you say that again? Actually, slower.
Gorev Mila Mahagwiv August Slanja.
Okay, I'll have to replay that later on and practice that more. Next time I'll try to say that to you without sounding like a moron.
It's tricky. There's like the third last word, for example, a gwiv. How do you get a gwiv out of that? You know, if you don't, that BH confuses a lot of people.
Yeah. But we still we're running a little over time, but I hope you still have some time to hang out for a little bit.
No,
I want to go over some of these.
Battery's still going. So.
Yeah, I want to, and I'm happy you didn't cut out because you said you maybe were gonna possibly get cut off because your internet was kind of unstable. But I'm glad you're still with us here the whole time, no cutoffs. So here's more in-depth looks at an in-depth look. I can't even speak English right. At the distillery, some shots here, and I think this, it's beautiful. Former
tasting
bank
room.
So this was like, was this furniture there, or did you guys just all?
No. It was just pure concrete when there was nothing ever done with it. So that's a piece of wood that was made. It's one piece of wood. So we do our tastings there. So at the end of the tour, yeah, no, it's nice. Yeah.
Very nice. And then we have here. Why is it not letting me go through here? Okay, let me see here. Make sure I'm in the right folder. Okay. All right, let me just pull this up here again. So here, beautiful, shiny pot stills here.
From Italy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us about
great
these stills
craftsmanship.
here. Triple distilled, obviously, three stills, triple distilled, traditional Irish way. Yeah. Even though not all Irish whiskey is triple distilled. Yes.
Correct. Not all Irish whiskey. A lot of it is Waterford, let's say, who are just bringing out the whiskey now as double distilled. There's a few. Great Northern is double distilled. Yeah, it's not everybody, but a lot of it is triple distilled. So it obviously gives you a lighter whiskey.
Yeah.
So part of the decisions that was the neck, the line arm, and exactly. Yeah. So what the angle is, that was one of the big decisions we had to make, as to, obviously, as you know, the spirit is heavier, if the line arm is going down versus the, as it goes up. So this is sort of a halfway.
Yeah.
So it's a nice
How
spirit.
Tall are these stills, by the way, actually? Because
I'm sorry?
How tall are these stills? We're not there, so.
So they
look tall, but.
They're from the base, they're about 12 feet, I would say.
Okay.
So the one on the left is 7,000 liters.
Okay.
So I don't know how many gallons that is, Alex, to be honest. I still haven't got my head around gallons. US gallons. So 7,000 liters anyway. And they're so we have eight fermenters before
Okay.
that. So you have with the
So
wooden.
here's the
So they are,
fermenters here.
they're the fermenters, and you can see the gin
So
still
nice. So
in the
nice.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, top right. Yeah, so right over here is a little gin
With the
still
ball on
here.
it, yeah. So
Yep,
that's gin
little
still,
little.
standalone gin still.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
So we
almost like
don't.
a lembic. It looks almost like a lembic there. Yeah.
That's a nice, a Muller still. So it's really nice. Makes really nice gin.
Yeah. And this equipment is from Italy.
Yeah. Other than the gin still was German. Everything else is
Okay.
Italian.
Okay. And the fermenters are Italian too.
Yes, they are. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So is that just wood paneling or are the
That's just
actual?
that's wood paneling. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So it's stainless steel on the inside, right?
It's stainless steel. Yeah, and it's one of the it is because it's easier to clean. So you have
Yeah.
it's easier to keep it consistent, and in terms of bacteria and everything, it's less of an issue.
Yep, yep, yep. And it looks like obviously all temperature controlled, so you can, cool or, cool
Mhm.
down, during fermentation, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the cuts are done manually off the stills by Paul and his team, but everything else is it's done. We do
Okay.
like 120 hour. We do 120 hour fermentation, so
Oh,
it's quite
120
long.
hour. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a
But
long fermentation. That's like how many days is that? Would that be? That's like 4 day, no, 5 days. 5 days, roughly. Yeah,
yeah,
5 days.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow, okay, that's very long. Typically your Scotch whiskey distillery, maybe 2, 3,
I was going to say around
maybe
70
four
hours, and
days. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe three
yeah,
or four
yeah.
days, but you guys take it all the way out to the 5 day.
Well, again, we started off probably different, and we just sort of played with it a little bit, and then just see what works, And I think every distillery does it differently. Every distillery gets to the
Yeah,
point where they say, yeah, we're happy with that, and let's just stick with it.
gotcha. And you talked about this earlier. Your mash bill, your grain profile is now 60% unmalted barley, 40% malted barley.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was asking Paul, what's the main difference in it, and he said that there's
Yeah.
the mouthfeel is different. He said that even that change, which doesn't really sound like a lot to me as an accountant, he said the mouthfeel is completely different on it. So Alex, if you at some point in time, I have some of the first. I have the 60% malted, 40% unmalted. I'll get the next time in Ireland. I'll bring the other over, and then we'll do a little bit of a tasting
Side
probably
by
up in
side. Yeah.
Philly. Yeah, we'll give out whatever
Yeah.
you want, and
Yeah.
we'll just have a little bit of fun with that, and just to see, if you can what you get out of each of the two, because I think it's interesting. Something, and this is
Yeah, because we talked about this earlier before, and then you guys used to have the reverse of 60% malted barley and 40% unmalted. Now you guys played around with this mash bill and your grain bill, and now it's 60% unmalted and
yeah.
40% malted. And I posed a question of what was the difference, like, and then so the answer now is the mouthfeel. Is it more viscosity? Is it the more kind of richer mouthfeel, or
Well,
did he go into detail about it?
he did. I'll read the email. He said the 60% unmalted is a heavier, oilier spirit. The
Uh-huh.
underlying flavor is similar, but it has a thicker mouthfeel, slightly less
Okay.
fruit, and more grain focused.
Gotcha. So
So
more oily, because also when you're milling, sometimes the unmalted, because it's unmalted, sometimes it's harder to mill because it becomes
exactly,
more kind of like sticky almost, right?
and that's why we
So that
started the other way.
yeah, so that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, thank you for asking that, for getting the answer to that.
No problem. No problem.
Um, and that's interesting. So more, here's your spirit safe, making the cuts here.
Yes,
Very nice. And this is who's this gentleman here?
he's one of our distillers.
Okay, very nice. Another angle of the pot stills here.
They're the two
Two.
of the guys who work with Paul.
Okay, very nice. Oh, they're trying the gin right here.
Yeah.
Couple of shots here. Photo ops. Oh, nice little. Okay. Distillery from the outside there.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is so beautiful. It's something just about the copper that's just, so
Oh,
attractive.
it's lovely. It really is. You got to get over. I mean, have you been over to
Yeah,
Ireland at
yeah.
all?
Yeah, well, no, no. Well, so I was supposed to be there actually, but then my trip was canceled because I was supposed to go to
Okay.
London for a WSCT training. Um, but yeah,
No, you
lovely,
got to go over.
lovely.
It's direct flights from Philadelphia. Well, there was, and there will be again. To Ireland. So no excuses.
Yeah, yeah, and it was only like I recall it was only like less than $200, 200 or 300 bucks, I think, round trip or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. You can get good value with Aer Lingus. I think it's Aer Lingus to fly from Philly. Yeah. So yeah, good.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's about it. Do you have anything to add that you want to touch upon, or anything that we
No, I
missed, or
think
anything
that's
like
it.
that?
I think that's it. Um, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's any questions. Did you see any questions pop out there that?
I've been asking the questions
Okay, okay,
as we've been going along. Belinda's been chiming in a couple times
perfect,
here, but I think a lot of people asked a bunch of questions. I think we got to answer them all already.
perfect.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick. And
Thank you.
this was great. And I hope, I learned a lot, and just so much insight here, just in terms of the history and the identity of Irish whiskey over these years and how it's changed. And, just learning about, your distillery, you guys, your brand, and the effort and the painstaking effort, risking life and limb to harvest, rare rare botanicals.
Well, you might
Um,
have noticed I wasn't there on the clip.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got the interns to do. Those are the interns.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a fascinating story, and I think, especially with whiskey in today's world, authenticity, as we talked about, is just so important. I think, you guys are really, you guys really care about that. And, like you were saying, the history of the family of farmers from the area,
Yeah.
starting this distillery, really wanting to stay with tradition, even using your, these traditional barley types. You're doing pot still Irish whiskey here, triple distilled, no column still, in your distillery there, small gin still besides that. But, I'm just, and even paying attention to the cast, because the cast is really so important, right? And you guys
Yeah.
get that, and
Yeah.
you guys are using the NEOC, and reconditioning, rejuvenating these casks,
Yeah.
and you guys you're just doing everything right, from what I can see. It's just starting from day one, and you guys just started in 2019, right? Well, you
Yeah.
guys, the distillery opened in 2019, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's exciting
And
times. It really is. I can't wait to try the first single pot still. Now, whether it comes out 3 years
yeah,
to the day or we leave it a bit longer, again, that's not going to be my decision. It's going to be the distillers. So
yeah,
the accountants won't decide that. It'll be Paul will decide that when the time is right. And I think that's the right way to do it as well.
yeah. And, so I guess the last question is, when do you expect, your own distillate to kind of hit the shelf, hit the stores? But and I guess just you don't really know, right? You have to see how that goes. Legally, it has to be aged at least 3 years for it to be even called whiskey
Yeah,
in Ireland.
yeah.
But you guys may bottle that 3 year whiskey, or, wait longer, maybe come out with a 10 year or 12 year. Um,
Yeah, my gut is saying that it's gonna be at least 4 or 5 years anyway.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that the guys who know single pot still better than we do
yeah.
will say that the longer it is, the better.
Of
So
course.
it's not something that can be rushed. So I think fingers crossed we won't be forced to do it. We'll be able to just wait and just if we get our other stuff right, if we're selling the single batch, the port cast, the other stuff that we do, there won't be a rush. We'll be able to keep cash flow going, and we'll be able to just leave it and say, let it sit there.
And you guys aren't and you guys aren't trying to hide it, like you guys are trying to hide that. Hide the fact that you're sourcing whiskey, and there's nothing wrong with it. Blending and the way you guys are filtering and all that, the slow cutting. That's a very interesting thing. You're not cutting the water into the whiskey over a 2-week period instead of just dumping it in. Really, definitely affects the flavor of whiskey. But you guys are already making great whiskey and winning awards in year one, pretty much, right? And since you guys been producing it, and then won World Whiskey Awards, IWSC stuff. Available in 12 states. Give you guys the last plug. Available in Pennsylvania. You can get the port cask on online order, right?
You can get the Minky Gin. You can get pretty much everything online. Through Leadership Brands.
Yeah. And we also have Belinda here in Pittsburgh, who's one of the reps here in Pennsylvania. And but if you're not in Pennsylvania, you can get it in Maryland, DC, Connecticut.
And you get it online. You can get it online through Clonakilty.com. If you go on, click on the US flag, you can get it online as well. We ship to 43 states.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, so go to Clonakilty.com. And also the distillery is available for tours, right? So
in
if you guys
it's time.
yeah. If you guys make it over there, mention Patrick, mention me, and they'll give you, maybe they'll give you a free shot or something, right?
Well, you'll get if you mention our names, and you'll get the VIP tour for the
VIP treatment. Sure. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. In this world of social distancing, we don't shake hands. We do the namaste, right? And we do these. And thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, Patrick. I think I personally learned quite a lot more insight into Irish whiskey, and I hope everybody enjoyed this session. And this session will also be available, after this live broadcast on my page, as well as later on get uploaded to YouTube, so people can, review this, even if you didn't get catch at the beginning, or if you had to leave and whatnot, you can see the rest of this. Okay.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Have a good night, everybody, and stay safe and drink some great whiskey.
Slánja.
Slánja.
Bye-bye.